0.5%. So a very substantial way to go, really, before the RBA is going to be content with what it's seeing in the jobs market here in Australia.
Chris Kohler, thanks so much for that. Let's get some reaction to the Prime Minister's statement and commitment, policy commitment at the Bush Summit hosted by the Daily Telegraph. Joining us is Michael Guerin. He's the CEO of AgForce in Queensland. Michael, what did you make of the Prime Minister's address there? Apologies for coming to you a bit later because the PM was running behind time with his schedule. But what did you make of the government's commitment as well in terms of building agriculture to be a $100 billion sector by 2030?
Yes, good morning. One of the things we need to understand as Australians is we have a privilege that many in the world don't have, which is our supermarkets are full of locally grown, fresh produce every day of the week and have been for a long time. We have a proud industry which cares strongly for the environment, which builds economic activities in towns and can do. To have the Prime Minister this morning reinforcing that, backing that, for his government to be supporting the work that we're doing in agriculture, and indeed the work he's done recently and his government's done recently in supporting us through droughts and floods, is an incredible fill-up to an industry full of entrepreneurs and innovators, of families who run businesses and produce food, and who can and will do more. And the support of the government is a tremendously important part of that for those seeking agriculture as an industry, indeed for young people thinking about entering an industry which has an incredibly exciting future in Australia and contributes so much already.
What's quite interesting as part of some of the announcements that the Prime Minister made today was that investment into soil. Why is that so significant, that money going towards investigating soil options for farmers? Sorry,
I missed that question.
Oh, sorry, we're having a few audio issues here, but if you can hear me now, the investments that the government said they're going to make into regional areas, in particular about renewing soil investment. Is that something that's quite significant for farmers?
It certainly is. It's very important. Farming is a long-term game. Young people thinking about getting into agriculture are thinking long-term. Making an investment, for example, in primary production is an investment which will take a long time to pay off. Having supportive policy settings, having the support of government, and indeed having a broader Australian community that understands the tremendous contribution the industry makes and can make are really important things to underpin that confidence and to allow the industry to move forward, and indeed for young people, for entrepreneurs, for families to commit to those regional and rural communities and to commit to that industry. We do, as I said before, have an industry in Australia which is the envy of many in the world, and we have that fresh food in our supermarkets and stronger and stronger environmental outcomes alongside that economic activity. Holding all that together, having those policy settings right from government and therefore allowing that confidence is a really important part of that.
And Michael Guerin, just finally, can you give us a sense of where the sector is now in terms of the drought? Is there any sign of it breaking, or do we simply have to hope and pray for rain over the summer months?
There's certainly a lot of hoping and praying to go, but there's a really important thing to talk about with drought, and indeed the federal government is starting to talk this way. Drought is not a natural disaster. Drought is something that happens regularly across our landscapes and has done for thousands of years in Australia. So as we learn about that as an industry and as we learn about that as regional and rural communities, our emphasis is more and more on investing in and supporting the preparedness work. So in the good times when the rain is arriving, preparing for the inevitability of the next flood in northwest Queensland. Understanding that the environment goes through these cycles. In a 10-year cycle you'll have some dry years and some wet years and some average years. The best time to prepare for the next drought is when you're in the good cycle, and that's the emphasis around the investment and the policy settings from government. And right now in Queensland, in some parts of Queensland, we're into our 8th year of drought. We have something like 65% of the state still drought declared. So indeed, to your question, we are praying for rain. And as we come out of the drought cycle, which we inevitably will, the industry will be focused on the preparedness for the next drought.
Michael Guerin, CEO of AgForce, thanks so much. We appreciate your response and reaction to the PM's contribution there in Dubbo. We'll hopefully talk to you soon. To some other news now, and an armed man is in a standoff with police on top of a